You wake up in a cold sweat, your heart pounding so hard it echoes in your ears. The room is still, your surroundings familiar, yet something feels wrong. You are not afraid of what might be lurking in the shadows, or what lies outside your locked door. You are afraid of what just happened, or more precisely, what could have happened. Because in this world, sleep is no longer a sanctuary. It is a gamble, a terrifying roll of the dice that every human must take. There is no warning, no symptoms, no second chances. One moment you are drifting into dreams, the next you are gone, just like that. No sound, no struggle, no explanation. In this future, sleep is Russian roulette, and the chamber spins every night. One bullet, 5 chances. Every time you close your eyes, you might never open them again. Welcome to the year 2039, traveler. You were not born here, but for the next 2 hours, this world is your reality. A future that spiraled from an anomaly no one could explain and no government could stop. It started quietly, just a few scattered incidents. Healthy men and women, young and old, rich and poor, all found dead in their beds with no signs of trauma. One body here, 2 there. By the time anyone noticed the pattern, it was too late. The only common factor was terrifying in its simplicity. Every one of them had fallen asleep. Scientists ran tests, autopsies, neurological scans, toxicology reports. All results were clean. Nothing made sense. Panic grew as the randomness became undeniable. You could be next, and there was nothing you could do to stop it except stay awake. But how long can a human body and mind survive without rest? How long before sanity breaks? In this world, sleep is not a biological need. It is a lethal risk. Society has changed, mutated, cracked apart at the seams under the weight of a fear no one can outrun. And you are here now, stranded in this reality, with only one truth to guide you. You will not survive. But before we reach the end, we must begin where the nightmare started. The moment the world first realized that sleep had turned against us. You step out of the time chamber and into a world that feels familiar on the surface, but is quietly disintegrating from within. The air in 2039 smells the same. The cities still function, and people still go about their routines. But beneath it all is a thick, invisible layer of tension. It's not political, not economic, not even environmental. It's biological, existential. It is the fear of closing your eyes. It all began just 2 years ago. At first, no one noticed. A man in Tokyo failed to wake up for work. A young woman in Buenos Aires, known for her strict fitness regimen, was found cold and still in her bed by her roommate. A 5-year-old in Cape Town simply never got up for school. They had no known conditions, no histories of illness, no accidents, no crime scenes. Their bodies bore no marks of struggle. Their organs were intact. Their brains showed no signs of trauma or disease. They were simply gone. Doctors were baffled. Families were devastated. But the medical community labeled it sudden nocturnal death, an ultra-rare anomaly that, statistically, could be explained away. That is, until it began happening everywhere. Over the span of just 6 months, the numbers quietly exploded. First, it was dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Every continent, every nation, every time zone. There was no pattern. Victims varied in age, gender, race, diet, and lifestyle. Some were insomniacs, others were deep sleepers. Some died on couches, others in hammocks, even in hospital beds under medical supervision. Every autopsy brought the same conclusion. death by unknown cause during sleep. No heart attacks, no strokes, no poisons. Their nervous systems simply shut off. At first, the media avoided it. Too random, too mysterious, too terrifying. But as stories leaked onto social media, panic began to bloom. Conspiracy theories erupted overnight. Some claimed it was nanotech. Others blamed a new strain of airborne neurotoxin, aliens, 5G radiation, or divine punishment. None of these held water. Nothing spread from person to person. No pathogen could be isolated. Government agencies and global health organizations scrambled to respond, but even they were split. Without a cause, they could not contain it. They could not model it. They could not stop it. Then came the night of the 10,000. It was a night like any other, somewhere near the end of spring. But by sunrise, over 10,000 people worldwide were found dead in their beds. Simultaneously, every one of them had gone to sleep. The world stopped. Live broadcasts were cut mid-sentence. Radio hosts choked back sobs. Presidents and prime ministers issued statements that offered more dread than comfort. The World Health Assembly convened an emergency summit that lasted 36 sleepless hours. Experts presented nothing but speculation. Some begged for quarantine zones. Others proposed halting international flights, assuming it was environmental. None of it mattered. The deaths were not contagious. They were random. The name came shortly after, SRS, or sleep-related sudden syndrome, though most just called it the roulette. The randomness was the cruelest part. You could go to sleep beside someone and never wake up while they lived to see another day. Couples died curled up together. Entire families were wiped out in one night. A global database was established to track the pattern, but no AI could find one. No genetics, no habits, no time duration. You could nap for 20 minutes and never wake up, or survive a full 9-hour slumber. People started comparing their chances to lottery odds. Except this lottery killed you. Governments issued advisories. First, it was mild. Monitor your sleep. Then it escalated. Do not sleep alone. Keep biometric scanners on at night. And eventually, the most chilling, avoid sleep if possible. Medical associations begged to stop the messaging, citing the dangers of sleep deprivation. But no one listened. Because once enough people die in their sleep without warning, logic gives way to terror. In the following months, the psychological effects began to surface. Insomnia became the new normal. Hospitals were filled with people, not because of the syndrome itself, but because of what people were doing to avoid it. Caffeine overdoses, hallucinations, psychotic breaks, sleep deprivation-induced seizures. Some people killed themselves rather than risk falling asleep naturally. Others chained themselves to loud machines to stay awake. The economy was the next to collapse. Night shifts vanished. Entertainment industries tanked. Streaming services lost billions in late-night viewership. Airlines saw a sharp drop as people refused to take red-eye flights. Hotel industries shuttered entire wings. Sleep pods, once a luxury in futuristic workspaces, became a symbol of death. But what sealed this new reality was the change in culture. People stopped saying goodnight. They replaced it with stay safe. Pillow sales plummeted. Mattresses were sold secondhand or repurposed into barricades. Nobody talked about dreams anymore. Dreams had become dangerous. Sleep wasn't a refuge. It was an execution chamber. And now, as you walk down the street in this future, you see what the world has become. turned into 24-hour stimulant centers, serving black market nootropics and intravenous wake-up cocktails. Billboards advertising "Never sleep again" with chemically enhanced models staring into the sun. Schools conducting midnight classes, children with dark circles under their eyes, their brains rewired for constant wakefulness. And in the distance, towering over the skyline, government facilities with one haunting sign: National Sleep Observation Center. You feel it now, don't you? The heaviness behind your eyes, the weight of tiredness that no amount of adrenaline can shake. But in this future, drowsiness is not just inconvenient, it is fatal. It is the whisper of death calling to you softly, invisibly, without cause or conscience. And the worst part, no one knows why it began. No mutation, no virus, no warning. It is simply a roll of fate, spun each time your body dares to rest. It is not personal, it is not preventable, it just is. And that truth breaks something deep inside you. But what do you do when the entire world refuses to sleep? When survival demands constant wakefulness? In the next section, we enter the chaotic boom of a new era, the rise of the sleepless economy. You can hear the hum of the city long before you see its neon glow. It is nearly 3 a.m., but traffic is thick, streets are buzzing, and businesses are booming. There are no closed signs anymore. In this new world, sleep is an invitation to death, and anything that helps you resist it becomes a lifeline. You wander through a commercial district in the heart of New Los Angeles, a metropolis once defined by its sprawling suburbs and glittering skyline. Now, it never dims. Every corner pulses with electric defiance against the night. As fear of the roulette spread, the world's economy pivoted with ruthless efficiency. Overnight, billions were poured into anti-sleep industries. Coffee became obsolete, replaced by military-grade stimulants, rebranded for public use. Super dominate every block, offering liquid alertness, neural shock shots, and something called neuroburn, a spray inhaled directly into the lungs for a 12-hour wake cycle. People line up in silence, eyes wide, twitching, desperate for their next dose of borrowed time. You step inside a sleepless center called Vigil, where everything is chrome and glass. Inside, dozens of clients recline in zero-gravity chairs under bright white light. No music plays, no one speaks. Instead, soft buzzing fills the space from headsets delivering ultrasonic wake pulses directly to the brainstem. This is not relaxation, it is medical-grade wakefulness. A technician moves quietly between the chairs, adjusting dials, checking vitals, recording microdata. These sessions cost more than a week's salary, but people pay gladly. Some are CEOs, some are college students, some are 9-year-old children whose parents are too afraid to let them sleep at home. The boom spreads far beyond biohacks. The entertainment industry transforms to meet the demands of a sleepless society. Endless loop video feeds flood the net, designed not to entertain, but to stimulate. Flashing lights, discordant tones, confrontational voices. Virtual reality wakescapes promise to keep users locked in hyper-awareness for up to 72 hours. A subculture of extreme sleep evaders emerges online, live streaming their attempts to stay awake for as long as humanly possible. The current world record sits at 342 hours. He died on camera, pupils dilated, muttering apologies before collapsing mid-sentence. The video has 200 million views. Advertising becomes predatory. Everywhere you look, billboards scream warnings. Do not sleep. It could be your last dream. Wake up or stay down forever. Brands sponsor late-night survival kits. Clothing lines launch infrared alert wear, vibrating violently if the wearer's body temperature drops during rest. There are bracelets that send electroshocks to the wrist when motion sensors detect stillness. You see a child in a stroller wired with them. His mother stares at her phone, her eyes unfocused, as the child jerks rhythmically every few seconds from tiny electrical jolts. In the underworld, things are darker. Black markets emerge selling outlawed amphetamines, neurological steroids, and prototype wake enhancers, not cleared by regulators. These are not FDA-approved substances. They are chemical chains built to override sleep centers completely. Some users burn out within days. Others explode in violence from neural overheating. But for a population terrified of bedtime, side effects are just a footnote. The streets echo with slurred slogans from walking corpses, better alive and broken than rested and dead. Work culture mutates into something grotesque. Corporations embrace the new order with a smile. No more breaks, no more nights off. Productivity spikes in the short term as employees work round-the-clock cycles. Burnout becomes irrelevant. Those who collapse are replaced instantly. Job postings even list insomnia adapted as a preferred qualification. Sleep, once a mark of balance, is now seen as weakness, laziness, a liability. Schools no longer follow a day schedule. Education has become continuous. Students rotate through 4-hour learning blocks, 24 hours a day. Sleep is forbidden inside campuses. Children who nod off during class are jolted awake with high-frequency alarms built into their desks. Instructors are given emergency wake syringes. Learning performance is down, of course. Retention is abysmal. But no one dares suggest going back to traditional schedules. That would mean risking lives. You visit a high-end apartment complex for the elite. Instead of bedrooms, there are wake chambers. Each unit features a holographic assistant programmed to detect fatigue and activate countermeasures. Ultrasonic tones play every hour. Air is infused with oxygen-rich stimulants. Food is liquid, nutrient-dense, and laced with nootropics. Residents rent these rooms not to rest, but to survive longer without collapsing. In the center of the building is an opulent lounge called the Never Dream Room. It is where people gather to mourn sleep. On the walls are framed photographs of famous victims, artists, doctors, children, those who were lost in their beds. A plaque reads, "Sleep is betrayal." Meanwhile, sleep clinics go bankrupt, their buildings repurposed into anti-fatigue gyms and hypersol spas. Sleep therapists change careers or vanish into silence. You read reports of sleep scientists who were mocked, beaten, even killed for promoting the myth of safe rest. Sleep studies are labeled dangerous. Universities quietly delete decades of research from digital archives. History is rewritten to reflect that sleep was always optional, always dangerous. Anyone who speaks otherwise is called a sleep sympathizer, a label that leads to harassment or worse. Religion is not spared. Spiritual leaders pivot sermons to align with the fear economy. In megachurches and temples, pastors and imams preach that wakefulness is purity, that sleep is the temptation of death. They reframe ancient texts to position eternal vigilance as godly. Congregations chant mantras like "The Lord is my alertness," and "He who slumbers shall perish." Sleep becomes sin. Heaven, they say, is for the wakeful. But it is not just the big industries that profit. Small businesses jump aboard. Corner stores sell emergency alert gum. Tattoo parlors offer chemical-linked designs that release microbursts of caffeine through the skin. Even fast food chains selling shock burgers that contain capsaicin levels so high they spike adrenaline on contact. Kids dare each other to eat them and scream in delight as tears pour from their eyes. It is a game. It is a defense mechanism. It is a lie they tell themselves to mask the terror that one nap could be their last. And what about the people who can't afford these luxuries? The poor, the elderly, the disabled, they become the forgotten. In the slums, you see bodies slumped against walls, heads tilted, eyes closed. Most are still breathing, some are not. No one stops to check anymore. There are no sirens, no medics. They are victims of a war that has no enemy, just probability. The roulette always spins. Eventually, someone's time comes. As you wander back into the heart of the sleepless city, you feel the ache behind your own eyes. It is subtle at first, a distant pressure, but then it grows. Your vision blurs slightly. You feel your body beg for a pause, but you know better. There is no safety in rest. There is only the risk of silence. Permanent, irreversible silence. And around you, millions walk the same tightrope, buying hours, leasing minutes, clawing for seconds. This is the fear economy. A system built not on growth, but on dread. Not on hope, but on the desperate clinging to life, minute by minute. In this world, sleep has no place, and neither does peace. But what happens to the world itself when darkness no longer signals rest? When night is stripped of its meaning, and the rhythm of life collapses? In the next section, we enter the haunting ruins of what used to be nightfall, and witness the world's descent into sleepless chaos. The sky above you is pitch black, but you would not know it. The ground is awash in artificial light, from the humming glow of commercial zones to the blinding intensity of rooftop beacons. Street lamps used to be spaced evenly, modest, polite. Now they are mounted every 10 feet, emitting light so white it stings the skin. The concept of darkness, true darkness, has been almost entirely erased. You realize with growing discomfort that the night has been murdered, and not just murdered, but buried under a billion-watt grave of neon, halogen, and high-powered LEDs. This is not insomnia. This is full-scale environmental denial. In the early days of the roulette, people still pretended night was optional. They dimmed lights, tiptoed through routines, whispered in quiet homes. But those early gestures of restraint quickly vanished. Fear overrode rhythm. The first cities to outlaw nighttime dimming were Shanghai, São Paulo, and Chicago. Within weeks, others followed. A total illumination mandate was passed globally, coordinated by what used to be the United Nations, now rebranded as the Global Circadian Safety Council. No home building or alley is allowed to remain in shadow after sunset. It is punishable by seizure of electricity, or worse, a visit from the Wake Enforcement Corps. Step into what used to be a residential neighborhood. Every house has its windows replaced with solid, smart glass panels, broadcasting bright interior light 24 hours a day. Blinds are banned. Curtains are classified as contraband. Privacy is a distant memory. At night, cities shine like the sun, visible from orbit. The stars have long vanished under the haze of man-made vigilance. Entire generations have now grown up without ever seeing the Milky Way. Telescopes gather dust. No one looks up anymore. What used to be quiet streets are now flooded with ceaseless activity. Children play in artificial playgrounds that operate in 3 shifts. Running from midnight to 8 a.m., corporate offices remain open at all hours, encouraging non-linear employment cycles as a form of productivity enhancement. Workplaces pump stimulant-infused air through hidden vents. Surveillance cameras monitor every workstation for signs of drowsiness. A slow blink can flag you for behavioral review. A yawn might cost you your job. Even the animals have changed. Birds no longer migrate properly. Nocturnal species have gone extinct or mutated into confused shells of their former selves. You see stray cats huddled in corners, their pupils permanently dilated, skittish and hostile. Dogs pace endlessly, unable to find a moment of rest. Nature itself has been distorted by the light. Trees bloom erratically. Flowers remain closed, tricked by the false daylight. Crops yield unpredictably. Farmers work in shifts, harvesting through the small hours with visor-mounted floodlights. The earth is confused, and so are the people. Mental health, already in crisis, begins to unravel completely in this unending daylight. Circadian disorders evolve into new conditions, given names like photonic hysteria, sundown dissonance, and luminance-induced paranoia. People begin to report phantom night terrors, waking hallucinations of darkness where none exists. They scream of shadows that do not move, of invisible figures blinking behind walls of light. Sleepwalking, once a benign curiosity, becomes a death sentence as sufferers wander directly into traffic, unaware of time or place. Psychologists attempt to intervene, but most have not slept in months themselves. Their diagnoses come out garbled, trembled, hollow. The prison system collapses. There is no need to incarcerate anymore. Just deprive someone of sleep for 10 consecutive days, and their mind will fracture. Prisons are replaced by detention cubes, soundproof, windowless cells lined with flashing lights and ambient alarm pulses that prevent rest. Inmates confess to crimes they did not commit just to escape the endless white noise. Some never speak again after their release. The concept of nightlife has reversed itself entirely. Clubs no longer exist to celebrate darkness. Instead, they simulate rest, selling the illusion of sleep without the risk. One popular chain, REM Club, offers visitors the chance to lie on floating beds in total darkness for up to 5 minutes, while artificial monitors create dreamlike hallucinations through cranial stimulation. Patrons line up for hours to feel what it used to be like. Some cry when they emerge, others scream. The experience is marketed as a spiritual journey, but most admit it only makes the reality outside feel more unbearable. Cemeteries become strange places in this future. Night burials are illegal. Graves must be lit continuously to avoid fostering death-associated imagery. Tombstones are made from luminous materials that glow from within. You walk past one now, and the epitaph simply reads, "Died in sleep. He should have known better." Families do not mourn at night. Grief is scheduled in 12-minute intervals during broad daylight under military-grade spotlights. Religions adapt or die. Midnight Mass is outlawed. Ramadan's night prayers are moved to high noon. Temples are redesigned to emit maximum lumen output. Worshippers are required to wear mirrored robes to reflect the ever-present glow. God is light. They say light is safety. Darkness is the path of fools. You start to feel the effects yourself. Your body is screaming for rest, but the environment does not allow it. There are no shadows to hide in, no quiet to anchor your thoughts. Even your internal clock, the ancient rhythm etched into your biology, is beginning to fail. You check the time and realize you cannot remember how long it has been since you last slept. A full day, 2, 5. Your thoughts begin to unravel. Simple logic becomes slippery. Memory fragments into flashes. You find yourself rereading signs, forgetting faces, stumbling over your own name. The government has taken advantage of this, too. Information is released in small, incoherent bursts. Public service announcements are designed to confuse more than clarify. A half-asleep population is easier to control. Curfews no longer exist. Only activity mandates. Requirements that citizens spend a minimum number of hours in motion each cycle, tracked by biometric implants. Those who slow down too much are classified as at-risk sleepers and flagged for monitoring. Your legs ache, your head pulses, your vision vibrates with static, and yet you are still awake because you must be. The fear is stronger than the fatigue. It is always stronger. You pass a public mural that once read, "Good night, sweet dreams." It has been painted over. The new message reads, in black block letters, "The darkness will kill you." This is not insomnia. This is extinction in slow motion. The death of night is the death of rest, of healing, of mental coherence. It is the slow, silent dismantling of what it means to be human. Without darkness, there can be no sleep. And without sleep, there is only madness. But if death strikes randomly and wakefulness cannot save you, how do people live with the uncertainty? What happens to the human psyche when every night becomes a gamble with mortality? In the next section, we enter the mind's unraveling spiral. Welcome to the lottery of death. There is a moment every day when even the strongest begin to slip. It is not an hour or a minute, but a flicker, a flash of temptation that comes when your body, desperate and strained, whispers to your mind, "Just rest for a moment." But that whisper in this world is the voice of death. And no one who listens is ever guaranteed to hear anything again. You walk into a public data center known as the Vault. It looks like a museum, but there is nothing to celebrate here. The Vault is a central archive of those who lost the gamble. Thousands of screens stretch from floor to ceiling, each showing names, ages, locations, and time of death. They update, live. Every 5 seconds, a new name fades into view. In the time it takes to blink, another life has vanished. Each death is random. Each one is a reminder. This is the new culture of probability, where people live under the psychological tyranny of the unknowable. There is no pattern. Rich, poor, young, old, healthy, sick. It makes no difference. You could survive 500 sleeps in a row, then die on the 501st. Or you could go your entire life untouched. Some call it fate. Others call it the roulette wheel. But no one calls it fair. You watch as a woman kneels in front of one of the screens, clutching the name of her child, age 7, fell asleep in the back seat of a car, did not wake up. Her body trembles silently, but there are no tears. No one cries anymore. Crying wastes energy, and energy keeps you awake. People talk in whispers about their sleep number. how many nights they have survived. They wear it on pins, etched into necklaces, inked into skin. You see a man with 1241 branded on his forearm, as if proud of cheating the system for over 3 years. Others treat the number like a curse. The higher it climbs, the closer you must be to the end. Some believe there is a limit, a cosmic counter. They say no one has made it past 2,000 nights. They say the roulette always catches up. In some regions, the culture has mutated into ritual. Before sleeping, people chant protective mantras, not religious ones, but mathematical incantations, hoping to influence probability with numbers. You hear people repeat strings of digits, Fibonacci sequences, prime numbers, irrational constants. They tattoo equations across their backs. It is not about belief, it is about control. Anything to make the uncontrollable feel less monstrous. Then there are the gamblers. Some have embraced the randomness fully, turning death into performance. You walk into a live streaming arena where contestants line up in sleep chambers for the world to watch. They take turns sleeping while monitors display their vitals. Millions watch. Some cheer, some cry, some bet. Will the contestant wake up? Will they beat the odds? The longest standing champion has survived 143 sessions. No one knows how. One night, the screen flatlines. A new contender steps in. The crowd cheers. The wheel spins again. Outside of the arena, the psychological damage is everywhere. Therapists, now called death adjustment counselors, work 28-hour shifts in flickering clinics. Their clients are not suicidal. They are terrified. They beg to be told it is safe. They demand explanations. They cry that they cannot go on, but also that they cannot stop. The counselors offer breathing exercises, anti-anxiety injections, temporary neuroblockers. Nothing works. The roulette does not care how calm you are. You see a man with a head full of electrodes, screaming at his own reflection, begging not to fall asleep. He is sedated, not for his safety, but so the others will not panic. There are no support groups anymore. Talking about death increases sleep anxiety. Sleep anxiety increases fatigue. Fatigue increases risk. Now people support each other by staying quiet. You sit in on a silent circle, 10 people in a ring, sipping glow water and breathing in rhythm. No one speaks. They just stare, terrified and together. In schools, children are taught statistics instead of stories. By the age of 5, they know the odds of death per hour of sleep. They recite them like multiplication tables. 8 hours equals a 0.03% chance. Naps have a 0.005% chance. Teens begin refusing sleep entirely by age 12. Teachers reward them with wake credits, which can be traded for food, clothing, or access to entertainment. It is Pavlovian, and it is working, but the cost is visible. You look into a classroom and see 40 faces, hollow-eyed, twitching. They are not students. They are survivors in training. The business world has adapted to insurance policies, now include clauses for sudden sleep termination. Families are paid double if the deceased was under 30, triple if they died while working. Sleep is now categorized as a higher risk behavior. Employers require 24/7 alertness logs before signing contracts. Professional athletes are disqualified from competition if they are caught sleeping outside of sanctioned wake zones. Companies offer no sleep bonuses to staff who remain active for 72-hour sprints. But not everyone can keep pace. A vast network of underground hideouts has emerged. People call them cradle cells. They are hidden rest sanctuaries deep in abandoned subway tunnels, beneath warehouses, inside mountain caves. There, people risk sleep together. They light candles, they share stories, they sing lullabies, quietly, as if remembering something sacred. They know the risk, but for a few fleeting hours, they remember what it was like to close their eyes without fear. These sanctuaries are illegal, of course. Raids are common. Drones scan for lowered vitals. When they find a cradle cell, they do not issue warnings, they issue body bags. You feel the weight of it now, not just on your eyelids, but in your soul. The pressure of uncertainty, the constant awareness that every second of rest is a roll of the dice. And you know what the roulette sounds like? It is not a click, it is a heartbeat, slower, then gone. And yet, people continue, because the alternative is to give in. And in this world, surrender is indistinguishable from death. You check your own sleep count. Day 0004. You are new here. The odds are still in your favor. Maybe, but you are already feeling it. That paranoia, the phantom heartbeat behind your temples, the need to measure every breath, every blink, as if your life depends on staying alert, because it does. But as the roulette spins endlessly, and society cracks under the weight of fear, the world's rulers step in. In the next section, we uncover the authoritarian measures meant to preserve order, and the chilling invention of sleep camps, where survival is no longer a right, but a scheduled privilege. You wake inside a metal cube. It is neither hot nor cold. The air tastes filtered, like it has been chewed up and spit back by machines. There are no windows, only panels that glow with dim pulses of pale green light. A low hum vibrates through the walls. You try to move, but your arms are strapped to the sides of a molded recliner. Your legs are secured with magnetized cuffs. Panic swells in your chest. Then you hear the voice. Remain calm. You are in sleep regulation unit for 2G. Scheduled rest commencing. Do not resist. This is not a prison, at least not officially. It is a sleep camp, part of the Worldwide Sleep Regulation and Containment Initiative, or SRCI, established 3 years after the first mass death events. Sleep camps were introduced as temporary stabilization zones designed to allow exhausted citizens to rest under supervision without risk. The public welcomed them at first, but what began as a humanitarian measure soon became something else entirely. Outside, the sleep camps resemble medical facilities crossed with military installations. Guards dressed in black exosuits patrol in silence, their helmets shaped like insect heads, with glowing red optics. No one smiles. No one speaks unless instructed. The air smells like antiseptic and ozone. Entry requires retinal scans, blood samples, and a background check that can take hours. People line up for days just to be assigned a sleep window. Once inside, citizens are sorted into biometric categories: low fatigue, moderate deprivation, critical collapse. Those deemed unstable are separated immediately and monitored by psychiatric AI. The rest are shuffled into rest units, long hallways of identical sleep pods, like coffins on their sides. Each pod is designed to monitor your pulse, oxygen, brain waves, and muscular tension in real time. If any anomaly is detected, if your vitals drop below a certain threshold, the pod floods with adrenaline gas and ejects you back into consciousness. No one is allowed to sleep for more than 45 minutes at a time, and even then, it is not restful. Every rest cycle ends with a trauma-inducing blast of cold light and static noise. You see a man emerge from his pod, eyes bloodshot, screaming into his hands. A nurse, if she can even be called that, injects him with a stabilizer and guides him back into the line. No comfort, no apology, just efficiency. The government insists this is the only way to keep people alive, that unsupervised sleep has too high a risk, that free sleeping is reckless and irresponsible. Public messaging frames the camps as a necessary inconvenience, like airport security or vaccinations. But the truth is far more disturbing. Inside, there are whispers of selective scheduling. Not everyone is granted equal access to rest. Those with social value, government officials, engineers, military personnel, are given premium pods and longer rest intervals. Everyone else, especially the poor, the disabled, and political dissidents, are often forced into extended wake cycles, then denied re-entry to the facility altogether. You speak to a woman named Clara, a former librarian, who was blacklisted from her sleep camp after criticizing its conditions online. Now, she hides in abandoned subways, injecting herself with illegal sleep suppressants just to stay alive. Her hands tremble. Her skin is bruised. She has not slept in 13 days. She says her dreams still come, even when awake. Outside the camps, new laws have reshaped daily life. In many cities, private sleeping is criminalized. Anyone found resting without authorization can be detained indefinitely. Beds in homes are replaced with alert recliners. Luxury buildings advertise legally compliant wake units. Violators are tracked using biometric rings that transmit vitals to municipal sleep monitoring boards. If your vitals drop at night, you are flagged, fined, or arrested. Children are not spared. State-run nurseries keep infants awake with low-dose stimulant, fog, and high-frequency lullaby loops designed to override natural sleep cycles. Toddlers wear motion sensors. If they stay still too long, alerts are sent to government agents who issue warnings to parents. After 3 violations, custody is revoked. The Sleep Enforcement Division is born, an elite paramilitary force trained in behavioral tracking and neural override protocols. They patrol cities in black vans known as dream killers. If you are caught nodding off in public, they descend in seconds, administering stimulants through hypersure air guns, dragging offenders into mobile monitoring pods. You see one of these vans arrive outside a park. A man dozing on a bench is hit with 3 darts before he even opens his eyes. No one intervenes. Most do not even look. Propaganda floods the networks. Videos show dramatizations of citizens falling asleep and instantly dying. A famous campaign slogan echoes everywhere. One nap could be your last. It is printed on buses, on billboards, even stitched into school uniforms. The message is clear. Obedience is safety. Compliance is survival. But the fear cuts deeper than propaganda. Sleep deprivation has become a tool of ideological control. Those who resist, who speak out against the camps or question the roulette, are labeled as sleep spreaders, individuals whose dissent makes others feel safe enough to sleep, thus increasing the risk. They are hunted, black-bagged, and never seen again. Inside the camps, resistance is rare but not extinct. You hear stories of small revolts, patients who hacked their pod monitors, who locked down their sleep units in desperate bids to rest beyond their assigned windows. Most were caught. Some died anyway. Their names are wiped from the registry. Their families receive no information, only sterilized letters that read, "Sleep cycle failed." You pass a display inside Hope Point, It shows global sleep statistics in real time, percentage of population currently awake, national average sleep interval, number of roulette deaths in the past 24 hours. The numbers never stop rising. The roulette never stops spinning, but the camps pretend control exists. It is the illusion of order, meant to soothe a terrified public, while the truth remains unchanged. No one knows who will die next. You stand by a large glass window and look out at the pod chambers stretching endlessly into the horizon. It is a factory of rest, regulated, rationed, enforced. The world used to say that sleep was the great equalizer, but not anymore. Now, it is a privilege, a regulated act, a weaponized necessity. And as you stare into this mechanical graveyard of stolen rest, the quiet realization settles in. The roulette is not the only enemy. The fear of it has birthed something far worse, a system that pretends to protect you, but in reality just tightens the grip on your freedom. But what happens to the most vulnerable in this society when even children cannot escape the roulette, and families are forced to choose between sleep and survival? The terror evolves into something even darker. In the next section, we descend into the most heartbreaking dimension of this crisis, the cursed innocence of a child's nap. You hear the sound before you see them. High-pitched wails echo from down the corridor, not of pain, but of exhaustion. It is the cry of a child who cannot sleep, who is not allowed to sleep, and who has not known rest in days. You round the corner and step into what was once a daycare. The bright colors remain. Cartoon murals still dance across the walls. Stuffed animals line the shelves, and alphabet tiles stretch across the floor. But now, everything has been repurposed. The nap mats replaced with upright vibration chairs. In this new world, childhood and sleep are enemies. Children die in their sleep just like anyone else. The first wave of pediatric deaths shattered any illusion of safety. Tiny coffins, empty cribs, and worse, in many cases, the children went first. It became known as the nap plague, a string of sudden deaths that struck toddlers during midday rest across hundreds of preschools and homes. Only silence and more death. Out of fear, governments acted. Naps were outlawed. Pediatricians were forced to rewrite every developmental milestone. Sleep, once crucial to brain growth, was now treated like a disease. Sleep training books were banned. Baby monitors now scan for signs of REM and trigger shock, pulses if detected. Cradles are wired with stimulation pads that jolt infants awake every 15 minutes. Playtime is broken into hyperstimulating circuits to keep toddlers moving, running, jumping, anything but resting. You enter a nursery ward now reclassified as a child wake center. Inside, toddlers are strapped into motion harnesses, walking in slow circles on rotating belts. Bright strobe panels flicker in their peripheral vision. Automated arms dangle toys just out of reach to maintain mental focus. Lullabies are forbidden. Instead, speakers loop aggressive learning chants in high-tempo rhythms. A girl stumbles. She is maybe 3 years old. Her knees shake and her head begins to droop. The system detects it instantly. Red lights flash. A burst of cold vapor sprays from the floor vents, followed by a high-frequency screech that makes your ears ache. The girl screams, falls, and is pulled away by 2 handlers before she can lose consciousness. No one reacts. It is routine. That act, once sacred, is now a punishable offense. Parents caught allowing naps are labeled sleep facilitators and charged with reckless endangerment. In the worst cases, it is treated as involuntary manslaughter. Entire families have been broken by one moment of mercy. A mother who allowed her son to nap during a long car ride was arrested after he never woke up. She remains in prison. Her husband took his own life a week later. Teachers are issued alert syringes and legally obligated to use them if a child becomes unresponsive. Desks come fitted with neurostim pads that send mild shocks through the forearms at scheduled intervals. Playground time is no longer free play. It is movement therapy, calibrated to prevent fatigue. Students as young as 5 are taught to suppress yawn reflexes, to self-monitor for signs of microsleep, and to log every blink longer than 1 second. Those who fall behind are not failed. They are escalated to behavioral sleep risk class. Puberty, a time when the body demands more rest, has become a medical crisis. Hormone regulation meds are mandated by law. High school students no longer attend in-person classes. They participate in remote wake modules, systems designed to flood their homes with visual and audio stimuli from dusk till dawn. For enforcing a culture where sleep is shameful, the suicide rate among adolescents has reached historic highs. But these are not children trying to die. They are children trying to rest, jumping from rooftops just to feel the sensation of letting go. Overdosing, not on poison, but on sleeping pills smuggled in from dead markets. The pills do not guarantee survival. In fact, the risk is higher, but to them, that is the point. Better to die dreaming than live in permanent exhaustion. You pass a memorial wall covered in hand-drawn pictures. They are clumsy and colorful. Houses, trees, smiling suns, but the faces are always asleep. Beneath each drawing is a name, a date, and a sleep count. Some are as low as sleep 005. One reads, Kayla, age 4, died during story time. Churches and temples are flooded with desperate families, but even religion offers no comfort. Children die in their mother's arms during prayer. Ministers collapse mid-sermon. Sunday school is banned. No one trusts silence anymore. Where there is quiet, there is sleep, and where there is sleep, there is risk. In an effort to retain some form of structure, governments have launched the Youth Wake Protection Act, creating military-run facilities where children are raised without traditional parenting. Inside, schedules are brutal. Every second of a child's day is monitored, injected with hyper-focused tasks and chemically regulated motion. The result is a new generation that has never known rest, never experienced dreams, never been rocked to sleep. Their voices are flat. Their attention is fractured. Rogue pediatricians run secret sleep havens, disguised as game centers or meditation camps, where children can nap under heavy sedation. Drones detect irregular vitals. Raids follow. Children are dragged from beds and loaded into quarantine vans, where they are flushed with stimulants and reclassified as neurological risks. The doctors disappear. The havens are burned. You interview a 10-year-old boy named Eli. His eyes are rimmed in red. His voice is hoarse. When you ask when he last slept, he answers, "I don't know what that means." You hand him a photo of a bed, and he stares at it like an alien object. He asks if it is a table for dead people. You realize he has never seen one in real life. And then it hits you. The roulette has done more than kill in sleep. It has erased the idea of sleep entirely. For the youngest generation, sleep is not lost. It was never there. What they fear is not nightmares. They do not know what dreaming is. What they fear is stillness, silence, the warmth of blankets, the closing of eyes. These things, to them, are not comforting. They are signals of collapse, death cues. You step out of the daycare turned wacunit and into the harsh light of early morning. But where fear consumes the mind, belief tries to fill the void. In the next section, we explore how desperation transforms into doctrine and how the fear of sleep gives rise to a new religion, one that worships wakefulness and condemns rest as sin. You arrive at what looks like a cathedral, but it is no house of peace. The structure towers over the broken cityscape, a monolith of black glass and chrome, its spires clawing toward a sky that has forgotten night. Floodlights encircle the building like guardians, scanning every inch of its surface. Carved into the facade are 4 massive words. Sleep is the sign beneath it. People gather by the hundreds, whispering chants under their breath, eyes wide and bloodshot, bodies twitching with restrained devotion. This is the sanctum of the awakened, headquarters of a rapidly growing movement known as the Church of Constant Vigil. It is not fringe, it is not conspiracy. It is mainstream now, with outposts in every major city and followers numbering in the millions. The Church claims divine revelation through insomnia, a new holy order born not from ancient scripture, but from survival. Their belief is simple and terrifying. Sleep is weakness, vigilance is purity, and death is the judgment for those who succumb. The founder, known only as She Who Never Sleeps, is never seen in person. She is broadcast live via massive LED walls, her face obscured in shadow, her voice modulated to a hypnotic monotone. They say she has not slept in 13 years. Her sermons are terrifying. She speaks of the roulette as God's trial, a test designed to purge the world of sloth and temptation. She calls dreams false visions, poisonous fantasies that distract the soul from higher purpose. According to her, only those who resist the urge to sleep will ascend to the woken realm, a metaphysical dimension where consciousness never fades. Inside the sanctum, worship takes a brutal form. The pews are lined with shock panels that jolt anyone who nods off. Followers kneel on metal grates for hours at a time, heads held upright with support harnesses to prevent involuntary rest. Children as young as 4 are trained to chant, "I am awake, therefore I am saved." Infants are denied cradles. Newborns are baptized not with water, but with strobe light bursts and subsonic pulses that cleanse the spirit of drowsiness. You walk past a training hall where initiates engage in wake fasts, periods of sustained alertness, sometimes lasting 12 days or more. Those who survive are inducted into the higher clergy. Those who collapse are removed and never mentioned again. The Church does not hold funerals. It holds awakenings, theatrical excommunications of the dead, in which the names of the sleepers are struck from the sacred scrolls and burned in front of the congregation. They are not mourned, they are condemned. Their holy text is called the Codex Vigilis, written entirely during waking trances, dictated by the founder during prolonged, stimulant-fueled rituals. It contains hundreds of commandments. Never close both eyes. Never recline for longer than 60 seconds. Never trust the comfort of darkness. Followers recite verses daily, and those who falter are forced into clarity trials, shock therapy marathons, designed to rewire their devotion. Pain, they say, is the hammer that shapes vigilance. The faith has spread far beyond the sanctums. In many regions, The church has replaced government institutions. They run the schools, where prayer cycles begin every hour with chants of gratitude for continued consciousness. They run the hospitals, where patients are dosed with sanctified alertness serum before any procedure, regardless of condition. They even run the courts, where crimes related to sleep, naps, sleepwalking, involuntary unconsciousness are judged as moral failures, not legal infractions. Sentences vary from public shaming to chemical lobotomization. You meet a woman named June, a former nurse who fled a city where the church took control. She speaks in a whisper, as if the walls still listen. She tells you about her younger brother, who fell asleep during a prayer vigil. He was 6. When he failed to respond to the wake alarms, he was dragged from the pew and exiled from the sanctum. Her family was forced to renounce him. They never saw him again. She still has his teddy bear hidden under a floorboard. Holding it, she begins to cry, not loudly, but softly, like someone afraid of being heard by God. Outside the major cities, anti-sleep cults take more radical forms. You come across a desert commune where members pierce their eyelids open and wear red-hot metal necklaces to keep themselves in a state of constant discomfort. In the Arctic zones, groups live in mirrored compounds, rotating sun lamps to create permanent daylight. Some even broadcast wake frequencies into the surrounding wilderness to purify the land. They call themselves the Radiant Ones and claim that they are evolving past biology. They believe the roulette is not death, but divine separation, a sorting mechanism for the righteous. Some sects go further. You enter a ruined village where an entire population has self-implanted neural feedback loops, devices that fry their sensory cortex at the first sign of drowsiness. Many are blind, deaf, or paralyzed, but still awake. They call it the final sacrifice, the total surrender of body for the sake of eternal awareness. You ask one man if he regrets it. He blinks slowly, then says, "I have not seen darkness in 7 years. I am closer to heaven than you." These belief systems offer meaning to a meaningless crisis. The randomness of the roulette, the silence of the scientists, the failure of governments, all of it creates a spiritual vacuum. And the church of constant vigil fills that vacuum with a message of clarity, that sleep is the enemy and wakefulness is salvation. But underneath that message is a deeper terror, because even the most devout followers still die. The roulette does not care if you prayed. It does not care if you fasted or punished your body or praised the light. It comes when it comes, silently, arbitrarily, cruelly. And when a high-ranking cleric dies in their sleep, the church calls it false death, claiming that they merely ascended. Their bodies are never buried. They are burned. You attend one such ceremony. The flames lick upward as the congregation sings hymns of resistance. A child next to you repeats the phrase, "Sleep is betrayal. I choose the flame," over and over again. His eyes do not close, not even for a moment. And as you step away from the sanctum, the light blinding your path, a sick truth creeps into your chest. The roulette may kill you at random, but fear is killing everyone, slowly, in the daylight. And the church, for all its promises of salvation, has simply replaced the terror of chance with the tyranny of control. But belief does not feed the body. And in a world where hospitals collapse under exhaustion, where doctors burn out before they can heal, the roulette breaks more than minds. It dismantles the very systems meant to preserve life. In the next section, we enter the war-torn front lines of modern medicine and watch as humanity's most vital support crumbles into chaos. You walk through the sliding doors of what was once a major hospital, but no one greets you. There are no nurses at the reception desk, no orderly pushing wheelchairs, no comforting voice asking how they can help. What meets you instead is chaos, the sharp, metallic scent of adrenaline, the distant sound of someone screaming, the flicker of bioscreens blinking with unread alerts. The lights are too bright, even by this world's standards, and they pulse irregularly, as if struggling to maintain focus in a place that no longer understands the rhythm of rest. This is not a hospital. This is a battlefield. The sleep crisis has done what no war or plague ever could. It has shattered the foundation of modern healthcare. It began subtly, a few doctors falling asleep at the wheel after double shifts, a handful of surgeons collapsing mid-operation, ICU staff forgetting basic procedures from weeks of sleeplessness. But once the roulette became known, everything changed. Doctors were no longer seen as saviors. They were seen as potential victims. No one wanted to be treated by someone who might drop dead mid-sentence. Medical schools collapsed. Residency programs were suspended indefinitely. Licensing boards shifted their exams from medicine to stamina. Trainees were no longer tested on anatomy, but on how long they could stay conscious under pressure. A generation of doctors emerged, not as healers, but as hyper-focused technicians trained to function in bursts of manic energy, kept alive by pharmaceutical cocktails and neural stimulants. But nothing could truly compensate for the loss of sleep. Brilliance decayed into error. Lives were lost not to roulette, but to fatigue. You pass through a hallway where cots are stacked on top of one another, filled with patients strapped into mobile anti-rest devices, frames that hold the body upright while pumping stimulants through 4 lines. Some of the patients are conscious, muttering incoherently. Others have eyes wide open, but they are not awake. They are locked in, caught between sleep and survival, unable to rest, but no longer truly living. Machines beep without rhythm. Vitals flatline, only to spike again seconds later. Monitors show brainwave patterns that should not exist. The EEG reads chaos. No delta waves, no REM, no peace. The doctors themselves are worse off. You enter a break room and find 2 physicians slumped over a table, their bodies shaking. One is injecting something into his neck. The other is rubbing a caffeine patch directly into broken skin. Both look up as you enter. Their eyes are yellowed, their mouths dry. They offer no welcome, only warnings. Don't stay here long. Don't close your eyes. Don't listen when the silence calls. Then they return to their routines, not to rest, but to survive 1 more hour. Hospitals have become triage factories. There are no more overnight stays, no long-term recovery beds. You either stabilize while conscious, or you are discharged. If you pass out, even from trauma or medication, your bed is given to someone else. The roulette waits for no one, and resources cannot be wasted on sleepers. Entire specialties are gone. Sleep medicine, neurology, psychiatry, these fields have withered into footnotes. Sleep clinics were the first to be shut down. Sleep therapists were publicly ridiculed and exiled. Those who once studied dreams now live in hiding, if they survived at all. The very language of rest has been scrubbed from medical literature. New textbooks define sleep as a biological vulnerability, and those who advocate for its importance are labeled underminers, dangerous individuals who encourage risk under the guise of scientific rebellion. Emergency medicine is in a constant state of panic. Most patients arrive not from injury, but from collapse, seizures from sleep withdrawal, cardiac episodes from overexertion, delirium tremens from stimulant overdose. There are entire wards filled with people whose minds have fractured, not because of the roulette, but because they have been awake too long. They speak in riddles. They see shapes in the corners of the room. They attack invisible shadows and weep for dreams they cannot remember. Some physicians have created underground sleep sanctuaries, illegal clinics hidden behind storefronts or beneath transit stations. Here, patients are allowed to rest, heavily sedated, monitored, protected, but the risk is enormous. If any patient dies in their sleep, the entire clinic is considered complicit. You visit one of these places. The lighting is dim, the air cool. The nurse speaks softly, her eyes scanning the vitals constantly. She shows you a boy, maybe 10, sleeping for the first time in 6 months. She says they give him 20 minutes a night. Any more is gambling. She hasn't slept in 4 days, but she refuses to stop watching. Above ground, major pharmaceutical companies push their solution: wake regimens. These are not medications in the traditional sense. They are full sensory protocols, combining pills, patches, breathables, and light therapy designed to suppress sleep indefinitely. Side effects include muscle spasms, paranoia, memory fragmentation, and eventual neurochemical collapse. But the public takes them eagerly. Every hospital gift shop stocks them. Every emergency room offers starter packs. In a world where the roulette could strike at any second, nobody wants to be the one who blinked too long. You find a room labeled High-Value Personnel Unit. Inside are doctors, engineers, politicians, anyone deemed essential to infrastructure. They are not allowed to sleep at all. Instead, they rotate between sensory deprivation tanks and high-octane neurotherapy chairs. Their vitals are managed remotely by AI systems that determine when they are approaching cognitive failure and administer emergency consciousness injections. It is not life, it is software maintenance performed on humans. Even medical ethics have shifted. No longer are doctors sworn to do no harm. Now, they are trained to minimize sleep-related exposure. If a patient requires a surgery that involves unconsciousness, the procedure is denied unless there is zero probability of failure. If a woman goes into labor at night, the birth is chemically delayed until morning. If a patient cannot stay awake post-operation, their treatment is canceled and marked as voluntarily deprioritized. There are whispers of euthanasia, quiet programs for those who can no longer endure the sleepless life. Officially, no such programs exist. But you hear about the silent wards, where certain patients are given a final dose of something gentle and irreversible. They are not mourned. Their families are told it was cardiac arrest or roulette. No one asks questions. Sometimes, mercy wears the mask of inevitability. Even the concept of care itself has eroded. Nurses used to sit at bedsides, offering comfort. Now they run triage queues like traffic controllers. Patients are spoken to in code. Vital numbers, risk flags, alert cycles. There are no names anymore, only profiles. You watch a man sobbing quietly in the corner. No one goes to him. He is not coding. He is not collapsing. He is, therefore, not a priority. And then there are the dreams, or rather, the absence of them. An entire generation is growing up with no dreams at all. Their brains, stripped of REM cycles, are blank slates. They do not imagine. They do not process. Creativity is vanishing. Intuition is fading. and with them, so too goes innovation. Hospitals once filled with research, exploration, possibility, now function as tombs for memory. You reach the rooftop helipad, where an emergency drone lands carrying a man on the brink of coma. The staff rush to extract him, but one nurse pauses. She sees something in his file, then shakes her head. "No point," she mutters. "He's been asleep for 7 minutes already. Odds are against him." They move on. The drone takes off again. The man lies still. The roulette has already spun, and you realize, standing under a flickering red beacon, that medicine, the sacred art that once defied death, is now just one more casualty, not of disease, not of violence, but of the simple, terrible randomness that sleep might kill you. But not all hope dies in hospitals. Some flee the lights, the noise, the schedules, retreating into the earth in search of a simpler answer. In the next section, we follow those who reject technology and return to the old ways, tribes that abandon modern life to seek refuge in forgotten rhythms, primal instincts, and the quiet pulse of nature. The city fades behind you like a dying star, its lights still pulsing in the far distance, humming with electricity and dread. You step off the final road and into the trees, the air growing thicker, darker, quieter. For the first time in what feels like forever, you hear birdsong. Actual birds, not synthetic audio loops. The path ahead is rough, choked with roots and moss, but it leads somewhere few dare to go anymore, into the forgotten pockets of the world, where nature still breathes, and where a desperate few try to reclaim it. This is where the sleepwalkers live. They call themselves tribes, but they are not indigenous, not in the traditional sense. These are people who fled the cities, who rejected the roulette economy, who turned their backs on artificial light and digital control. Some are scientists who lost faith in systems. Others are families who refuse to raise their children in a world that punishes rest. Many are simply wanderers, exiles, escapees, survivors of trauma who stumbled into the woods and never came back out. Here, among the overgrowth and silence, they have built something rare, a society that accepts sleep. The first settlement you reach is hidden beneath a thick canopy. Its buildings made of reclaimed wood, stones, and earth-packed walls. No metal, no electricity, no lights. At night, they use torches and fire pits. During the day, they follow the sun. You feel the difference immediately. Your body reacts before your mind catches up. Your shoulders unclench. Your breath slows. The weight behind your eyes, that dull, unrelenting pressure, softens. You feel tired, and for the first time in days, the feeling does not terrify you. They greet you with caution. You are scanned, not by machines, but by elders. People trained to recognize the micro-twitches of exhaustion, the wild flickers of overstimulation. You are deemed hypervigilant, a term they use for anyone fresh from the wake world. They lead you to a quiet place, a sunlit clearing surrounded by ferns and tall grass. No one speaks loudly. There are no drones, no monitors, no beeping machines, just wind and birds and breath. Their leader is a woman named Anara, once a leading chronobiologist at the International Institute of Neural Studies. She tells you she walked away the night her daughter died in her sleep, not because of roulette, but because of panic. Her daughter had been awake for nearly 10 days, too afraid to close her eyes, too young to understand the balance her body needed. She collapsed mid-sentence. Anara tried to revive her. No one could. The girl had no number, no warning, just a broken system that punished her for needing what every living thing is born to require. Here in the village, Inara has revived ancient techniques. They follow circadian rhythms based on light and shadow. They fast during periods of fatigue to avoid metabolic crashes. They drink herbal tonics that sedate the nervous system naturally. More importantly, they sleep in shifts, in cycles, sometimes in groups. They do not fight the roulette. They acknowledge it. They even believe, in quiet whispers, that it is not entirely random, that something about artificial light, synthetic noise, and forced wakefulness triggers the fatal mechanism. Out here, under the trees, surrounded by living systems, untouched by modern chaos, the roulette happens less frequently. Inara shows you a logbook, thick, handmade paper, bound with hemp cord. It documents over 3,000 rest cycles among the tribe's 200 members. Only 3 deaths in over 4 years. Statistically, that should be impossible. The roulette kills thousands every day. But here, it does not follow the rules. Or perhaps you realize the roulette is not omnipotent. Perhaps it is not random. Perhaps the world simply made it worse. You meet a young boy named Tam, who has never seen a billboard, never worn a sensor, never been shocked awake. He sleeps twice a day, once before sunset and once after moonrise. He wakes without fear. He dreams often and remembers them. He tells you one of his dreams was about a city with no light, where people floated instead of walked, where sleep was a gift people shared, like food. When he finishes, he asks if you have ever dreamed. You try to answer. You cannot. You spend time in a sleepwatcher's hut, a small structure made of bark and soil, where a villager lies wrapped in wool, breathing slowly. The sleepwatcher's role is to sit quietly, listening to the rhythm of the sleeper's breath, ensuring they are not disturbed. If the roulette takes them, they will be honored. If not, they will wake to soft songs, not alarms. You ask if this is safe. The sleepwatcher shrugs. Nothing is safe, she says. But here, at least, it is sacred. The tribe has no internet, no live data feeds. They rely on scouts who occasionally venture into cities to bring back news, medicine, and books. But they rarely stay long. Many cannot sleep for weeks afterward. The noise, the flicker, the sheer unnatural rhythm of civilization lingers in their blood like poison. Some never fully readjust. There are rituals here, too, but they are not religious. They are grounding. Every evening, the tribe gathers in a circle and sits in silence as the sun goes down. No one speaks. They just breathe together. Afterward, elders tell stories, not legends, but memories of the time before the roulette, of soft beds and midnight rain, of lullabies and long naps on rainy afternoons. The children listen with wonder. To them, sleep is not a biological function. It is a form of resistance. You spend 3 days here, and something inside you begins to fracture, not in fear, but in release. The first night, you lie awake for hours, too conditioned to surrender. The second night, you drift for 20 minutes, then jolt upright, heart pounding. But the third night, you sleep, and you wake up. Not all who do are so lucky. While you are there, a woman dies in her sleep. She was old, her body thin and weathered. When the sleepwatcher found her still, there was no alarm, no panic. The villagers gathered, held hands, and sang to her as her body was wrapped in linen and burned beneath the stars. They did not weep in fear. They wept in reverence. She walked into the final dream, Inara says, and she was not alone. You ask her if this lifestyle is sustainable. She shakes her head. No. The cities, will find us eventually, or the weather, or hunger, or war. But until then, we sleep, not because we are foolish, but because we choose life as it was meant to be, even if it kills us. As you prepare to leave, Tam gives you a dream catcher, woven from bark fibers, strung with stones and feathers. He tells you it will not protect you, but it will remind you what the world forgot. You step back into the path. The sounds of the forest fade behind you, and as the city lights return to your vision, glaring and violent, you feel a deep, sickening sadness, because now you know the roulette was not the curse. The response to it was. And somewhere in the heart of the forest, life still dares to close its eyes. But not all stories end in silence. In the final section, we return to the cities, to the people who face the roulette one last time. There, in the dim light of resistance and remembrance, humanity confronts its final sleep, not with panic, but with something stranger, acceptance. The cities have gone quiet, not silent, not yet, but quieter than you remember. The constant blare of alarms has faded. The endless propaganda loops no longer scream from rooftop screens. The sky, though still artificially lit, seems dimmer, like even the machines have grown tired. You walk the main boulevard of what was once the sleepless capital, and for the first time in years, you do not hear the pulsing beat of urgency beneath every footstep. The people you pass are slower now, not with fear, but with fatigue, and more importantly, with peace. The collapse did not come as a bang. It came as a surrender. People simply stopped trying. There was no announcement, no global speech, no final policy change. Just one day, an unspoken consensus passed between billions of tired souls. Enough. The roulette never stopped. It never explained itself. It never got worse. But neither did it go away. And so, one by one, in homes, in parks, in streets, in hospitals, in prisons, people gave in. They lay down. They closed their eyes. And they waited to see if they would wake. You step inside a residential tower, once fortified against sleep. It has been abandoned. Not violently, no signs of struggle or looting, but gently, like the tenants walked out one day and never came back. Beds have been made, dishes stacked neatly, notes left on tables, going to sleep. If I don't wake, I love you. The rooms feel sacred now, not like tombs, but like shrines to something ancient and beautiful that was nearly lost. Rest. In the center of the city is a field where people gather each night. They bring pillows, blankets. Children curl beside parents. Strangers lie next to one another, fingers touching, breathing in rhythm. The field is lit by nothing but moonlight. No drones, no surveillance, no stimulation, just sleep. They call it the dream ground. You sit among them and you listen, not to voices, but to the sound the world had forgotten. The exhale of surrender, the whisper of dreams. No one tries to stay awake anymore. They know the risk, but they also know the cost of vigilance, what it did to their minds, to their families, to their sense of self. Wakefulness became a religion, a currency, a prison. But now, in these final moments of clarity, people understand something they never did before. Death is not the enemy. The absence of living is. Across the world, similar scenes unfold. Hospitals no longer turn away patients who fall asleep. Nurses now hold hands with the dying. Sleep pods are repurposed, their restraints removed, their monitors silenced. In schools, children are taught to dream again. They color with closed eyes. They are told stories that end in peaceful sleep, not warning signs. They are encouraged to nap. Some do not wake, but most do. Churches reopen, but not in the name of constant vigilance. The sanctums of the awakened have been emptied, their walls spray-painted with new messages. Let us rest, we remember, sleep, peace over fear. Former zealots sit in the pews with bowed heads, not out of guilt, but from exhaustion. Some weep, some sleep right there, in the sacred halls where rest was once a sin. The roulette does not spare them, but it does not need to. They have made peace with it. You find Clara again, the woman who once ran from sleep camps. She now teaches a small group of teenagers how to build beds from natural materials. They listen closely, curious and unsure. One of them raises her hand and asks, "But what if I don't wake up?" Clara pauses, then answers with a soft smile, "Then you'll be the first to know how it ends." The students laugh, not cruelly, not nervously, genuinely. That laugh had been missing for too long. In the mountains, the tribes and the cities reconnect. Knowledge is shared. The data from the forest, the logbooks, the rituals is studied not as folklore, but as insight. Scientists begin quietly re-examining the roulette. Patterns once obscured by panic emerge from the shadows. Environmental triggers, light saturation, chemical thresholds. A global hypothesis forms that the roulette is not purely random, but reactive, that perhaps humanity amplified its own doom. But the discoveries no longer feel urgent. The fear has passed. What matters now is not eradicating the roulette. It is understanding it, making peace with its presence, respecting its power. You walk through a museum where the history of the sleep crisis is being curated. Rooms filled with relics of the wake age, stimulant patches, shock bracelets, hollow-eyed mannequins, posed in upright sleep chairs. In one corner is a preserved hospital bed with a plaque that reads, "The last place he closed his eyes." Visitors pass silently, reverently. Some kneel beside it. Some lie down beside it. A few fall asleep. The guards do not stop them. There is even a new holiday, celebrated not with parades or fireworks, but with silence. It is called the Long Pause. For 24 hours, cities dim their lights, screens go dark, public transport stops. Everyone is encouraged to rest, not because they must, but because they can. Families gather not to talk, but to nap together. It is not somber, it is sacred. You return to your own space, a quiet room near the edge of the city. No machines, no warnings, just blankets, soft lights, and a journal. You write down your final thoughts, not out of fear, but in gratitude. Then you lie down. You feel the pull of sleep rise up from beneath you, soft and slow. And for the first time in this entire journey, you let it take you. You do not know if you will wake, but that, you realize, is no longer the point. Because in this world, where humanity faced the roulette and nearly destroyed itself to escape it, the greatest rebellion is not survival, it is sleep. And now that you have seen it all, the fear, the resistance, the madness, the surrender, only one question remains. What would you choose if it were your world, your bed, your body, on the edge of sleep, knowing you might not wake again? You have traveled through the nightmare. You have seen the rise and fall of a world caught in a death spiral. It could never predict nor prevent. You have walked through cities drenched in light, watched children tortured by their own biology, witnessed governments collapse under the weight of sleepless fear, and faith contort into fanaticism. You have stood in the center of humanity's greatest irony, that the very act which once gave us healing, dreaming, memory, and love became the one thing we were most afraid to do. But here, at the edge of this imagined reality, you may find a reflection of something real. Because even without roulette, our world already treats sleep as weakness. We sacrifice it for deadlines, ignore it for ambition, medicate it when it becomes inconvenient. We run from rest, even without knowing what it costs. What if sleep has always been sacred? Not a flaw in design, but a gateway to something deeper, something universal. What if the roulette is not fiction, but a mirror, showing us what happens when we abandon balance, when fear becomes routine, and when survival replaces living? You may never face a world where sleep can kill you, but in some ways, maybe you already do. If this journey made you think, made you feel, or made you question the world you live in, let it not end here. Share this video with someone you care about. Start a conversation about the things we take for granted. Drop a comment below. Would you choose to sleep knowing it might be your last? Would you fight it or finally let go? Subscribe for more explorations into the strange, the philosophical, and the terrifying alternate futures we could still create. Because in every choice, every possibility lies a ripple. And sometimes that ripple is deadly.